Welcome to What Dwells Beneath, the podcast that ventures into the chilling realms of true crime and the supernatural. I'm your host, Percival, and joining me behind the scenes is our producer, Ozma Neku, or Neku for short. Each week, we bring you spine-tingling stories and eerie mysteries that will leave you questioning the world around you. In today's episode, we'll uncover the gruesome case of the murder in room 1046 at the Hotel President in Kansas City. This unsolved mystery from 1935 is filled with bizarre events and strange occurrences that have puzzled investigators and true crime enthusiasts for decades. Before we go into the grisly details, let me give you some background on the era and the location. The 1930s were a time of great change in America. The country was in the midst of a Great Depression, and people were struggling to make ends meet. Kansas City, Missouri was a bustling hub of activity known for its jazz music, vibrant nightlife, and, unfortunately, a fair share of crime. The Hotel President, where our story takes place, was one of the premier hotels in Kansas City at the time. Opened in 1926, it was a luxurious establishment that hosted prominent guests and events. However, on January 2nd, 1935, it became the scene of one of the most gruesome, unsolved, and mysterious crimes in true crime history. Our story begins with a man who checked into the hotel under the name Roland T. Owen. Little did anyone know that his brief stay would leave behind a trail of unanswered questions and a legacy of intrigue that endures to this day. So, get comfortable, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown as we explore the unsettling events surrounding the murder in room 1046. We'll dive into the strange behavior exhibited by Roland T. Owen, the cryptic interactions of the hotel staff, and the unusual circumstances that led to his untimely death. Thank you for joining us on What Dwells Beneath. Let's begin. On January 2nd, 1935, a man checked into the Hotel President in Kansas City under the name Roland T. Owen. Roland T. Owen was described as a man in his mid-20s with a distinctive scar on his scalp. He had no luggage except for a comb and a toothbrush, which raised immediate suspicion among the hotel staff. Despite this, he was given a room 1046. Owen's behavior from the moment he arrived at the hotel was nothing short of bizarre. He insisted on a room facing the courtyard and seemed very particular about the placement of the room. He requested an interior room, away from the windows. This unusual request was just the beginning of a series of strange behaviors that would be reported by the hotel staff. The bellboy who escorted him to his room noted that Owen kept his lights off and the curtains drawn. He seemed nervous and on the edge, constantly looking over his shoulder as if he was being watched. Over the next couple days, the maid, Mary Soptic, had several interactions with Owen. She described him as polite, but a peculiar man. On January 3rd, 1935, Mary went up to the room to clean. When she got to the door, she noticed it was locked from the outside, which indicated that Owen had locked himself in. This was unusual for a guest, especially considering his earlier request to keep the door unlocked. When Mary knocked, Owen let her in, but she noticed he kept the room in almost complete darkness. A single dim lamp provided the only light, casting eerie shadows across the room. Throughout his stay, Owen made several odd requests. He asked the maid to leave the room as it was, not bothering to clean or replace anything. He mentioned that a friend named Don would be visiting him and that he didn't want to be disturbed. Despite this, no one ever saw Don, and the identity of Don remains one of the many unsolved aspects of this case, as no one ever saw another man enter or leave the room. The hotel staff also reported strange phone calls coming from Owen's room. He seemed to have lengthy conversations with someone, often speaking in hushed tones. However, it is noted that at one point, there was an argument within the room, and one of the voices heard was another man. As the days went by, Owen's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He would leave and return to the hotel at odd hours, often looking disheveled and agitated. The staff couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, but they couldn't have predicted the horrifying events that were about to unfold. Mary, the maid, also observed that Owen seemed to be getting even more paranoid. He frequently checked the hallway and seemed to be listening for any unusual sounds. His behavior made her uneasy, but she continued to comply with his request while she was cleaning the room. Later, Mary returned to the room to deliver fresh towels, despite Owen's early refusal. When she knocked on the door, she heard two voices from inside, indicating that Owen was not alone. One voice, presumably Owen's, told her to come in, but when she entered, she found Owen once again alone. However, Mary did note that there was two separate, distinct voices being heard from inside. That evening, hotel staff reported hearing loud noises and possibly scuffles coming from room 1046. However, when they checked, everything seemed normal and Owen insisted that he was fine. The next morning, Mary noticed that Owen's door was once again locked from the outside. When she entered the room, she found him in a dazed state, lying on the bed, fully clothed. He appeared to be in pain, but he assured her that he did not need any medical attention. Throughout his stay, Owen continued to make peculiar phone calls. The hotel switchboard operator noted that he often spoke in hushed tones and seemed to have intense and cryptic conversations. The events in room 1046 took a horrifying turn on January 4th, 1935. Around 7 a.m., the hotel switchboard operator noticed that the phone in room 1046 was off the hook and had not been replaced correctly. Now, this wasn't uncommon for guests, but when it remained that way for several minutes, the hotel staff decided to go and investigate. A bellboy, Randolph Probst, was sent to check on Owen. He knocked on the door and heard someone say, "Come in, turn the lights on." At the time, Probst did not have a passkey. He knocked again, but no one came to the door. So he just said in a demanding tone, "Put the phone back on the hook." Probst then left, went back downstairs, and continued with his normal duties. However, the phone operator stated about an hour later, the phone was still off the hook. Probst was once again told to go to the room, but this time, he used a passkey to enter. What he found was deeply alarming. Owen was lying on the bed, completely naked, with dark stains on the bed sheets that appeared to be blood. However, Probst did state it was too dark to tell. The phone was lying on the floor, off the hook, and the room was completely destroyed. Probst assumed Owen was drunk or unconscious, and without examining him closely, put the phone back on the hook and left the room. However, a few hours later, the phone was again found off the hook. This time, another bellboy, Harold Pike, was sent to investigate. Pike found the same scene, Owen still in the bed, naked and unresponsive. He also noticed bloodstains on the bed and the walls. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Pike immediately contacted the hotel manager, who in turn called the police. When the police arrived, they were met with a gruesome and perplexing scene. Owen was actually still alive, but barely conscious, with severe injuries including multiple stab wounds, a fractured skull, and extensive bruising. Blood was splattered all across the room. It was clear that a violent struggle had, in fact, taken place. Detectives questioned Owen, who could barely speak due to his injuries. When he asked who attacked him, he muttered, "Nobody." He claims that he had fallen against the bathtub, but his injuries were far too severe to support this explanation. Owen was rushed to the hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries later that night. The investigation into Owen's death revealed even more puzzling details. The room was locked from the inside with no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Owen had either let his attacker in or the attacker had a key. The hotel staff confirmed that no one had seen any suspicious individuals entering or leaving the room. However, the maid, Mary Soptic, did tell the detectives that she found a note that stated, "Don, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Wait," as she was cleaning the room one day. A further search of the room uncovered several bizarre items. There were 4 small fingerprints on the telephone, which were never identified. However, the police believe these fingerprints were of a woman. Police also found a label from a necktie, a safety pin, an unsmoked cigarette, and a small bottle of diluted sulfuric acid. However, there were no personal belongings, clothing, or any items that could reveal Owen's true identity. As detectives tried to dig deeper into the case, they discovered that Roland T. Owen was an alias. When Roland checked in, he stated he was from Los Angeles. Despite extensive efforts, they were unable to determine his real name or background, even discovering that there has never been a Roland T. Owens to live in LA. The investigation also failed to uncover any other evidence linking the mysterious Don to the crime, leaving his identity and role in the events completely unknown. These weird and unusual circumstances, also the lack of concrete evidence, made the murder in room 1046 one of the most baffling cases in Kansas City history. The hotel's once luxurious reputation has now been overshadowed by the chilling mystery of Roland T. Owen. After doing their initial search of the hotel, the police immediately launched a full-scale investigation. The initial theories ranged from a tragic suicide to a complex web of intrigue involving multiple parties. The fact that Owen checked in under a false name suggested premeditation, sparking further suspicion. One of the most compelling theories posed that Roland T. Owen was involved in some form of illicit activity. Perhaps he was an undercover agent or involved in organized crime. The mysterious Don, mentioned by Owen, was a key figure in this theory, possibly a contact or even a co-conspirator. The next couple of days, the police interviewed numerous hotel staff members and guests, piecing together a timeline of Owen's final hours. The maid's testimony was particularly revealing. She recounted Owen's strange behavior and noted the presence of a possible visitor. Could this visitor have been the elusive Don? It was then brought to the attention of the police that a mysterious woman was seen entering the room on the night of the murder. Her identity remains unknown, but her presence added another layer to the case. She was described as a commercial woman, or someone who was dressed in high fashion and wore expensive furs. Was she an accomplice, a lover, or perhaps even the murderer? Did the fingerprints on the phone come from this woman? The bizarre nature of the case quickly caught the attention of the media. Newspapers across the country published sensational headlines, turning the murder into a national spectacle. Public interaction surged as theories and rumors spread like wildfire. The police received countless tips, but many led to dead ends. Interestingly, a man claiming to be Owen's friend contacted the police. He insisted that Owen's death was a result of a love triangle gone wrong. He provided detailed descriptions of the people involved, but his story was never corroborated. However, the woman he described matched the woman entering the room. Initially, Roland was said to be buried in a pauper's grave, as no family had come forward to claim his body. However, an anonymous donor intervened, calling and saying they will be sending an envelope containing cash to cover the expenses of a proper funeral. The funeral home also received a floral arrangement with a card signed "Love Forever, Louise." This mysterious benefactor ensured that Roland received a decent burial at Memorial Park Cemetery, instead of the unmarked grave he was originally destined for. The identity of the anonymous donor and the significance of Louise remain unsolved aspects of the case. Despite extensive efforts to trace the origins of the cash and the floral arrangement, the investigators were unable to uncover any leads. The charitable act ensured that Roland T. Owens received a proper closure, at least in terms of burial. But the mystery surrounding his death and the events leading up to it continues to confuse researchers to this day. The cash and the floral arrangement were delivered under mysterious circumstances. The envelope containing the cash was delivered by a stranger who refused to give his name or any details about his connections to the case. To add, the envelope was also wrapped in that day's newspaper. The floral arrangement, which consisted of a large bouquet of roses, was delivered to the funeral home with explicit instructions to be placed on Roland's casket. In the weeks following the funeral, the Kansas City Police Department continued to receive anonymous phone calls from an individual who claimed to have information about the case, stating not only was he involved in the love triangle mentioned earlier, but this was because of his own doing. However, the information provided by the caller was vague and could not be corroborated by any other evidence. The mysterious case of Roland T. Owen took a significant turn when his true identity was uncovered. Roland T. Owen was the alias used by Artemis Ogletree, a young man from Birmingham, Alabama, right down the road from me. The breakthrough came when Ruby Ogletree, Artemis's mother, saw a newspaper article describing the case and the upcoming funeral. She recognized the distinctive scar on the man's head from the photographs and reached out to the authorities. Ruby confirmed that the man was indeed her son, Artemis Ogletree, who had left home in 1934 to travel to California. Ruby Ogletree's discovery was a pivotal moment in the investigation. She had received letters from her son, sent from various locations, including Egypt. These letters, however, were suspicious in nature. Ruby noticed that the handwriting did not match Artemis's, and they were postmarked after his death, suggesting that someone else had been sending them to mislead her. To add, we learned that Artemis was 19 when he was murdered. Artemis, born 1915 in Florida, had moved to Birmingham with his family when he was a child. He was known to have a distinctive scar on his head, which resulted from an accident involving hot grease. The scar was one of the key identifiers that led Ruby Ogletree to recognize her son in the newspaper photographs. So why did Artemis leave Birmingham in April 1934? He told his mom he was leaving to California in search of work. His mother states his journey took him across the country, and he occasionally sent letters home to assure his family that he was doing very well. However, by the time he arrived in Kansas City in January 1935, it appeared that Artemis had become entangled in a dangerous situation that would ultimately lead to his tragic death. The funeral itself was a somber affair, attended by only a handful of people. Among the attendees were Ruby Ogletree and a few close family members who had traveled from Birmingham to pay their respects. The presence of the anonymous donor and the mysterious Louise loomed largely over the proceedings, leaving those in attendance with a sense of unease and unanswered questions. Were they there? Were they among the people attending Artemis's funeral? The burial at Memorial Park Cemetery provided a dignified resting place for Artemis Ogletree, but the circumstances surrounding his death and the subsequent investigation continue to cast a shadow over the case. The Kansas City Police Department remained committed to solving the mystery, but despite their best efforts, the case eventually went cold. In the years following Artemis's death, the case of Roland T. Owen became a legend in true crime circles. The bizarre circumstances, the cryptic clues, and the unresolved questions have kept the story alive in the minds of investigators and enthusiasts alike, myself included. The enduring mystery of who killed Artemis Ogletree and why remains a grim reminder of the complexities of human nature and the limitations of our understanding. Forensic technology in the 1930s was primitive compared to today's standards. The police relied heavily on witness statements and physical evidence from the crime scene. Unfortunately, many crucial pieces of the evidence were either mishandled or overlooked. The lack of definitive forensic evidence, such as fingerprints or DNA, made it challenging to identify the murderer. The mysterious note found on the bedside table reading, "Dawn, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Wait," further complicated matters. Was it a genuine message or a red herring planted by the killer? Also to add, the police stated the fingerprints found on the phone was completely unusable. As time passed, the mystery of Roland T. Owen's death continued to captivate true crime enthusiasts. Despite the initial investigation limitations, modern technology and fresh perspectives have led to new theories and speculations about what might have transpired in Room 1046. Years after the case and the murder, numerous true crime enthusiasts and amateur sleuths have revisited the case, hoping to uncover new evidence or insights. The advent of online forums and social media has allowed for collaborative efforts, with individuals sharing their findings and theories. Some researchers have even attempted to use modern forensic techniques to re-examine the available evidence, though the results have been inconclusive. One of the most popular modern theories suggests that Owen, whose real name was Artemis Ogletree, was involved in espionage or intelligence work. This theory does explain his cryptic behavior, false identity, and the presence of the mysterious Dawn. These are all examples of covert operations gone wrong. Proponents of this theory believe that Owen was either a spy or an informant who was betrayed and ultimately murdered to protect sensitive information. Another modern theory revolves around organized crime. Some researchers speculate that Owen was a low-level criminal or an associate of a larger crime syndicate. The brutal nature of his injuries and the locked room scenario suggests a professional hit, possibly ordered by a higher-up in the criminal underworld. The involvement of Don in this theory remains unclear, but he could have been an accomplice or a rival. Maybe when Artemis left home to find work, he may have gotten involved in something a little over his head. There's also a theory that Artemis's death was the result of a personal vendetta. Some believe that he was targeted by somebody from his past, perhaps due to a romantic relationship or a financial dispute. The mysterious woman seen entering Owen's room could have been a key player in this scenario, possibly luring him into a trap. Maybe Dawn, this mysterious woman, and Artemis was the love triangle. Maybe this woman and Dawn were married and Artemis was the woman's secret lover. As we conclude our exploration of the modern theories and speculations surrounding the mysterious case of Roland T. Owen, it's evident that his unsolved murder continues to captivate and bewilder true crime enthusiasts. Despite the passage of time, the allure of room 1046 remains as potent as ever, drawing us into a labyrinth of questions and uncertainties. The murder of Roland T. Owen is a case that defies easy explanation. The myriad of theories, from espionage and organized crime to personal vendettas, reflect the complexity and intrigue that has surrounded this mystery for nearly a century. While we may never know the true identity of this woman and whoever this Dawn character is, or the exact circumstances of Artemis's death, the pursuit of truth keeps this story alive. To our listeners, if you have any theories, insights, or information about the case of Roland T. Owen, we encourage you to share them with us. The collective effort of true crime enthusiasts has often led to new discoveries and perspectives, and your contributions could play a role in unraveling this mystery. Reach out to us through our social media channels or our Discord, and let's continue the conversation. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey into the mysterious case of Roland T. Owen and the murder in room 1046. Before we sign off, here are a few important reminders and ways you can stay connected with what dwells beneath. If you're listening on Spotify, please rate our show 5 stars, follow the podcast, and hit the bell icon within the app to get notifications when new episodes go live. Don't forget to take advantage of Spotify's features, like the ability to comment under episodes and engage with fellow listeners. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we would greatly appreciate it if you could rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you intriguing content. For those who want to know the exact moment when new episodes are released, consider joining our Discord community. The link to join can be found in the episode description. In our Discord, you'll not only be notified the moment an episode goes live, but also have access to features like episode discussions and the opportunity to suggest future topics. Additionally, we invite you to submit your personal encounters with anything true crime or supernatural in the Discord. Your stories could be featured in future episodes. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at WhatDwellsBeneathPod. If you want to follow me personally, you can find me at PercivalGG. On my personal page, I share content from my YouTube and Twitch channels for those interested in gaming content. I'm always sharing behind-the-scenes content, updates, and more. A big thank you to all our listeners for tuning in, and a special shout out to NetGoo for producing this episode. All the research we've done will be added to the show notes in our Discord, so be sure to check it out if you want to delve deeper into the details. And remember, folks, the truth is often stranger than fiction. Stay curious, and thank you for listening to What Dwells Beneath, where we explore the unknown.